geometry series on geometric constructions. All right, so what we're going to do is basically we're going to go through just our basic geometric constructions that we're going to use in geometry. All throughout geometry, we're going to use these things. We're going to use them to not only answer questions, but to build shapes and prisms, and everything that we see in the world today can be made from what we're about to go over. All right, so I'm going to write down our vocabulary. And these are words that we're going to cover and we're going to go over, and it's up to you to find the definitions for, but you'll have a referencing point. All right, so let's start with the most basic thing here. All right, so hopefully you can see this, but this is a dot. All right, this is just a dot. We're going to call this dot A, but it's not called a dot. What we call this in geometry is a point. All right, so we call this a point. All right, so what a point is it is any or infinite number of places in space that take up any amount of size. It doesn't have a determined size. It doesn't have a determined width, height, or number, but it is a single place in space. And space is just everywhere. All right? So when we talk about a point, we talk about how many there can be. All right? We can have an infinite number of points. But if we take a point and we line up another point up right next to it, and another point up right next to it, forever and ever and ever, what we end up with is this. This is a line, all right? This is a line. All right, what a line is, it is an infinite number of points lined up next to each other, all right? It goes forever in both directions, and it has an infinite number of possibility for points. All right, so we have point A, point B, and point C can all be on this line. All right, so it can go in infinite ways both ways. But what we can do if we only wanted to look at part of this line is we can take and put two endpoints. All right, so what we can do is we can make two endpoints, which tells us that we're going to stop looking at that line right here and right here. All right, so what we have created here is, instead of looking at our line as a whole, we're just looking at a part of our line. We call this a line segment. Often, we will use line segments in geometry. We can make a shape if we had several line segments. Here we have four line segments that we have made into a square or a rectangle. All right? So this is a line segment. We can identify infinite number of points between these 2 points because, again, it's still a line. It's only part of a line. So there's still infinite number of points between these 2 points. All right? But we're not looking at it as a whole. Okay? We're not looking at it as a whole. All right? So the next thing we're going to look at is, let's get our line back here. All right? So we have a line. Let's say that we just wanted to start at this point here and look in that direction on this line. Let's say this is 0 on the line, and we just want to look at the positive area on the line, or whatever's in that direction. If we have a line with a single endpoint, and that line continues in one direction forever, this is what we would call a ray. All right, this is what we would call a ray. All right, so a ray is a single endpoint with a line traveling in one direction for eternity. All right, what we can have here is two rays that share an endpoint but travel in different directions. So we have one endpoint, and this is a line, but we're going to treat this as two rays. What this is called would be an opposite ray. Again, this would be one ray or two rays that share an endpoint but travel in opposite directions. Now, that's an opposite ray. But if the two rays do not travel in completely opposite directions, and they just travel in different directions, we get a construction like this. All right, and we've seen these. This is called an angle. All right, this is an angle. An angle is two rays that share an endpoint but travel in different but not opposite directions. All right? The last basic construction that we need to talk about is this. If we have lines this is called a plane. This is a plane. What this is an ever-expanding space, but it is a single flat surface. All right? This is a plane. On a plane, we can have points on a plane. We can have a line on a plane that rests on top of the plane. Or we could have a line that goes through a plane and crosses through a plane. All right? Or we can have planes that are joined together. But this is a basic unit of geometric construction. All right? So these have been your basic vocabulary for our geometric constructions. When we come back and have our next lesson, we're going to talk about how we can use these and identify parts on them. All right? We'll also talk about collinear and coplanar, and we'll talk about how we can use line segments and lines to identify the names of planes. All right, thank you.